Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Econ Americas podcast, where we share under the radar investment opportunities across our big continent, that is North America, Central America, and South America. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and find us on all the major podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, you name it. If this is the first time you're listening to this show or watching it, then Econ Americas is a startup research firm that provides economic and business intelligence all over Latin America. You can learn more about us and our services at econamericas.com. I am your host, Daniel Duarte. I'm hailing from Asunción, Paraguay, and I am joined today by Ivan Bebek. He has over 20 years of experience in financing, foreign negotiations, and acquisitions in the mineral exploration industry. And he was formerly the president, CEO, and co-founder of Canadian Resources. Today, he is the chair and director of Fury Gold Mines, president and CEO of Sombrero Resources, and chair and director of Tier 1 Silver. Ivan, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Excellent. And to start our conversation, you describe yourself as a serial explorationist. And why don't you give us us and our listeners an overview of the projects you have done and the regions you have worked in?
Sure, happy to. So 20 years of doing this. I love finding things, really big things if possible. Predominantly precious metal discoveries, but also now base metal discoveries based on the importance to the electric world, the EV evolution that's happening as we speak. For me and the team around me, it's been a stream of successes. We first went to Africa. We found a 5 million ounce gold mine in Ghana, West Africa. Learned a lot through the last bull market, did very well for shareholders. The share price went over $9 per share from 50 cents. And then went to go repeat that success in Caden, our second company, where I most recently was CEO, or my last CEO position was held. And Caden was in Mexico. We were outside of Guadalajara, and we were looking for another multi-million ounce gold deposit. And in 2015, sold the company to Agnico Eagle for $200 million. And the share price, again, did extremely well for shareholders, but in the middle of the bear market. And what myself and my partners did at that time was we leveraged off of that success to go out and not only get some of the best geologists we could find in the world, which are predominantly from Newmont or BHP, is we went out to go and acquire the best assets we could find. And it led us to Canada and South America as the two areas of choice based on potential scale, how big things could be found, and also based on the grade or potential economics of where they could occur. And so we had a company called Oren Resources. From 2015 to 2020. We raised over $100 million looking for these world-class type of mines. And we got focused down in South America with Sombrero, the Sombrero project. We call the company Sombrero Resources. There'll be a name change here shortly to Copernico Metals. And but for the time being, it's Sombrero. And this is an incredible project that represents the other half of the Las Bambas mining trend in southern Peru. And, it's got all the hallmarks of that scale of a discovery. Las Bambas is the 9th largest copper producer in the world. But it's got some social challenges, which we can touch on. And I'll talk about our behavior and how we approach projects in a minute. Tier 1 Silver is a company I hold the role as chairman of, and brought it to market earlier this year, which is on the coast of Peru, down by Tacna. And it's an incredible endowment of silver and gold on surface on a world-class porphyry belt. And we're drilling now, starting to hit over a kilo of silver in veins subsurface there. So we like to find things because it's the best share price return, that you can possibly see in any mining investment is a new discovery. Discoveries are harder to come by, big ones even harder to come by than just the discovery. And from that, I like to think we found some of the biggest opportunities we could, copper gold focused at Sombrero and silver gold focused over at Tier 1 Silver. So that's what brought me into the role of CEO of Sombrero. Now, Sombrero is not trading publicly yet. It is a public company, and it's a spin out of Oren Resources, which had Fury Gold Mines, which is the Canadian gold company. It had Sombrero Resources, and it had Tier 1 Silver. From an investment standpoint, we took one share and we basically turned it into 2.7 shares by splitting it into three different companies because there was copper, gold, and silver assets in one company. Where we are with Sombrero, as we work our way back to market, we have a really good two projects in southern Peru, but we're also looking outside of Peru right now in other South American countries or Latin American countries. And we're going after scale, and scale meaning very big things that could become potentially economic. And so everything that we do with Sombrero is going to be relative to something really big that could move the needle and make the top 10 kind of discoveries globally.
Interesting. And here at Econ Americas, we always try to showcase the region's potential. And of course, mining is a large component of it, and foreign direct investment in mining is very important. What led you to the region or those specific countries, and how do you navigate those challenges that are, every region has challenges, but Latin America in particular has social challenges related to mining. And how do you navigate those situations?
So the first part of your question is a mine called the Yanacocha in Peru. It's 60 million ounces of gold, and Cerro Verde is there as well. I think that's third largest copper porphyry in the world. So the scale of those kind of deposits really got my attention to go in country and try to find something like of that consequence. So that was the easy part. The challenge has been navigating through different regions in Peru, learning how to behave socially. And we've always put communities first and stakeholders first and treat them with respect. But Peru's got a long history of some anti-mining groups that have really tried to challenge the advancement or exploration for mines. And that's where the opportunity lies, but so does the challenge. With that, what we've noted or what we're doing at Sombrero is we're bringing in almost $4 million US of agricultural programs to a couple towns in the Andes. These are long-term sustainable programs where if you look at the Andes and ask what's missing, it's nutrition. And so we can bring in agriculture, we can bring in farming and fish farms. So we're bringing that in. And this is before we get our first exploration access to drill our first holes, although we've had some short-term agreements that have allowed us to kind of identify the opportunity. And why we chose to go the agricultural road is because we've noticed the history where mines had polluted water supply and has affected crops and farming for a lot of communities in parts of Peru. And so to come in with an agricultural mandate, and we're working with the federal government of Peru to achieve this, it's a really big statement. And I don't think we could do more. And if you look at us and our peers in South America, I think we're leading that charge to commit as much as we have to almost $4 million of agricultural programs before we drill our first holes. And importantly to us and to the people that we're going to impact, we're very confident that we might have a mine. So we treat it like it's a mine at day one. If we go out there and explore and it's not there, we want to make sure whatever we've done for presence is long-term, sustainable, very positive for the people that have allowed us to do that. And I think for all of Latin America, the people often get left behind. And I think money comes and you pay for access, but money gets spent, very quickly. If you give somebody a big check, it'll last 2 or 3 months or maybe a year, but it's not going to last for multi-decades. If you bring in the farming agriculture with cows or French lambs or what we've done, or vegetables and whatnot, and you create a way that they can actually sustain themselves for multi-decades, that's a better imprint to leave. And as an explorationist, I'm driven by finding the big mine and looking for metals like copper and nickel, which we're doing in Sombrero. These help the EV world. And in South America, there's a lot of huge targets to kind of help that cleaner, greener planet. And at the same time, though, because I've done this for a long time and very good at raising capital for the companies that I'm involved in, I really enjoy putting the people in the communities and the agricultural steps at the forefront of getting involved here. We rely on a very smart technical team of geoscientists to pick projects that are worth making the effort. So when we come in, we spend a few $1 million right out the gate to kind of make that imprint. And it's working really well. We're achieving a lot of support from the local communities. It's really helping us drive forward. South America has its fair share of elections, as you've seen in Peru, you're seeing in Chile. And I would just say that to me, I've been doing business in Latin America for probably 9 years, and I've been through one too many, elections and different political regimes to worry about it too much. However, when you look at countries Chile or Peru and Ecuador and some of the other ones that are coming up now, and you realize how important the economics are of having a good mining culture, I think that everyone's starting to realize there's ways to benefit and bringing tons of foreign capital into countries to explore and develop these projects, and they can actually, benefit as a country as a whole from the presence of mining companies.
In November 2021, the Ecuadorian government raised $3 billion in foreign direct investment during the Ecuador Open for Business Forum. Over 2,000 people, including 800 foreign investors, attended the event in Quito. Ecuador has turned the economy around since the start of the pandemic, which left the country's finances in disarray. In 2020, the South American nation only received $1.2 billion in foreign direct investment, and the government's deficit surpassed $7 billion. The Guillermo Lasso administration is trying to pump $30 billion over 4 years into key industries through 50 public-private partnership projects. These projects span 10 different industries: energy, hydrocarbons, infrastructure, real estate, mining, telecommunications, environment, culture, sports, and healthcare. By offering lucrative opportunities to foreign investors, the Ecuadorian government expects these projects to create new jobs and to boost the Ecuadorian economy all over the country. To improve its attractiveness, Ecuador has pledged to exercise fiscal discipline and has rolled out a successful COVID-19 vaccination campaign to reopen the economy. The government is reviewing its annual budget to slash the current deficit in half. It's also increasing the country's international reserves, which have already grown from $5 billion in November 2020 to $8.3 billion in November 2021. In 2022, the Ecuadorian government will offer other perks for investors under the new Foreign Investment Promotion System and set up a one-stop shop to digitize and replace procedures with 35 different government entities. To learn more details on the 50 public-private projects, subscribe to our premium content at economericas.com/subscribe. You can read a backgrounder on the topic and access all our coverage on financial opportunities in Ecuador and the region.
Yeah, exactly. Incidentally, in Peru, the new president, Pedro Castillo, he campaigned on a very radical platform, but once he took office and he had to moderate because the importance of mining is just too great for the country. And we see this in other countries of the region. In Ecuador, for instance, we are going to put out a backgrounder on the issue soon. So what is the main difference between working or doing business in the mining field in North and South America from what you have learned?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of similarities between the two. We're dealing with Indigenous First Nations people in Fury gold mines. Anybody in Canada usually is. And in Latin America, you're dealing with Ejidos in Mexico or a lot of the communities down in southern Peru or anywhere in Peru. And so you have a challenge. There's quite a bit of familiarity in Canada because mining has been its pastime for many decades or many hundreds of years. And I think that the opportunity is better understood and better capitalized on in Canada from a government perspective. We recognize in Canada that we have the natural resources. This creates a lot of jobs. It improves communities. It creates towns. It creates culture. There's a lot of really good things for the people in Canada. I'm talking about the good side of mining and the way it's progressing now from
Sure.
an environmental perspective. In Latin America, I find there's a big gap in understanding how to do it. And I find that money does not always end up in the places where the mines are found. It kind of goes central to the capital cities of the countries. And I think that there's a big, more sharing of capital with the locals and more long-term sustainable events need to be implemented in South America. And the problem we run into is when you go approach communities, mining in some places has a bad name or reputation because of how it was done in the 80s or 70s. And I think the education of how it's done today with the actual new rules, the laws in terms of environmental impact, or socially, how people are treating their access as we are. And there's a big difference. And I think we're in this up curve of people learning and starting to appreciate there can be a very positive relationship with mining companies and local people as long as you start on the right foot. And for us, I found that the best way to have good presence and to work with people in South America is through actions more than words. And I've learned that in the last bull market, people came with a checkbook and said, "Hey, here's $300,000. Give me access for a year." Money spent, they leave, there's a mess, what have you. That's the past. It's not who we are. We've never been that way. And we're on the other side of it. Let's bring in very impactful agricultural programs, or you tell us, what do you need to make your lives better? But it has to be sustainable. You have to be a part of it. So let's create a better environment. And as far as the environmental liability, which we all are much more aware of globally, I think we really have to push for solving the need for metals in these new towns with very responsible implementations of what we do.
Interesting. And capital markets is also one factor that I think still needs to be developed in Latin America. So all these companies can, raise funds locally and not need to go to New York or Canada to be on the stock exchanges. And all these, yeah.
That's a big point there. And when you have a president who's anti-mining, or if you create that challenge for the investment, we are one of the few groups that can actually raise capital in good markets, bad markets, and all markets. And the mining industry in Latin America will suffer if the investment climate is poor. Now, I think we need to, in Latin America, they have to train themselves. A lot more people should go to school for geology, especially because it's such a massive proponent. And somebody has to create a capital raising environment, as you said, bang on, to attract capital and to monetize the capital. The largest network in the world is the US for investing that could monetize something, meaning for capital to perform. Now, there's huge markets in Brazil. There's huge markets in Peru as well, stock markets and whatnot. But for some reason, in a country with so many resources, it's not as widely followed and promoted and marketed as it is in other places for the US markets. So to attract any capital market, you need all markets buying in. You need London, the Swiss, the US, you need the Canadians, you need us all. We all do. And a lot of Latin American investors invest through New York Stock Exchange into mining companies and whatnot. And I think to bridge the gap, it starts with your investment climate that you set for your country. If you make it amenable to foreign investment, amenable to capital to come in, that money that comes into your country can eventually, list into your markets, list into your exchanges, and help build that industry that's missing in some of these capital markets that are in Latin America.
Yeah, there are efforts underway, like the MILA, the Latin American Integrated Market, which it's an effort to, merge the stock exchanges of Chile, Peru, the Andean countries, and those that will join the Pacific Alliance one day. So, but there is still a long way ahead, and we all hope that is going to be sooner than later. Now, what does it take for a company to be successful in this industry, particularly in gold, silver, and copper deposits, which are plentiful in Latin America?
Perseverance, that would be the most important word there. Our market's tough. and it's cyclical, meaning the commodities market for all those metals. It's improving a lot because a lot less mines are being found and developed globally. So there's a very good price point of those metals. Now, to persevere and raise capital and draw investors in for mining companies and stocks when you have competitive industries like cryptocurrencies or the Dow and the tech stocks that are on straight, really steep curves, it's very challenging to draw investors for that. And the challenge we have right now as a sector is people aren't finding mines. A lot of money's not going towards investment. There's been some turmoil with the elections down in South America, which really deter a lot of capital to come in country. And so the perseverance needed is extremely high. Now you also need very good quality geoscientists, and you also need capital, which comes back to the first point about the capital markets. So I would say it's never been more difficult to be an explorer in South America than it is right now, based on competing industries. Perseverance has never been more needed. You've got to be prepared to wait, and you've got to be prepared to persevere through all the volatility that can come out of those countries, right? So I think that's it. That's my main perseverance and, capital raising ability. You have to be able to raise capital. And I know a lot of people in our industry cannot raise it right now. And so, very few can. So it's a tough business to be in, and we're just going to persevere.
Right. And before we let you go, Ivan, why don't you tell us, well, this show is about unveiling investment opportunities, right? So is there any sector or industry or country or deposit that you think is still flying under the radar of investors and they should look more closely into it?
Sure. Absolutely. So great question. I'm a founder, and I'm also on the advisory board now of a company called Torque Resources. In our group, we went out to go find some of the largest mines in the world. Torque's been looking for a project for 11 years. We've raised about $30-40 million on that path. And Torque, about a month ago, acquired a project called Santa Cecilia in the Maricunga in Chile. And this is an incredible project. It sits right next to a former mine called Caspiche. And it's a magnitude of scale. It has drill holes 900 meters of 0.5 or 4.5% copper gold. It has really high grade gold peripheral to that. And it has some of the biggest targets we have ever seen. And it's about a kilometer away from a neighboring mine, Caspiche, which is held by Bebek and Newmont in a JV called Abierto Norte. And so this is one of the most compelling, large scale discovery holes have been made, and it's underexplored vastly projects that I know of in the world right now. This comes from 20 years experience, and what I see for that going forward in the near term, the company is going to capitalize, and it's going to start its first drill program. And the first holes that they're drilling in Torque are going to be from surface through oxide gold, then through porphyry, and the target of mineralization is over a kilometer of mineralization in each hole they're going to plan to drill. There's 4 targets like that on the property that could really make this or give us a shot at being 2 to 5 billion tons type of a discovery and compete with some of the biggest ever found. So that's the most undervalued one that I know of right now that's listed publicly in terms of an opportunity. Sombrero, the company I'm the CEO of, we're all partners in the same group, but it's not trading yet. So it's not public, and that's another story as it comes to market. I'm sure we'll talk again. But I'd point people to take a real serious look at Torque Resources. TORQ is the symbol, and it trades on the venture exchange for now. But just look at the last press releases about Santa Cecilia and read about it. You don't have to be a super educated investor to understand it. This is a project that's been unavailable since the 80s and came through. And there's an incredible exploration team out of Chile that's driving it forward for the company. So it's a great one to pay attention to.
Yes, it's very exciting. We will definitely be following it closely. Ivan, thank you so much for your time today and for coming on the show. You can follow him on Twitter. He's on as Ivan Bebek, and you can also check out his company. They are on LinkedIn and on some other social medias. We will include all the links in the show notes. So folks, if you like this episode, please subscribe, leave us your comments, your suggestions, who we should interview next, what industries and other topics we should cover. See you next month, and thanks for tuning in.